good afternoon. This is the second video I'm making regarding the theming behind the characters in the board game Unmatched. Since I already made one, I will not repeat everything that I said there, but I will just reiterate that this is not a strategy guide. If you want a strategy guide, I will leave in the description some links to some strategy guides that I think are good. But this is simply a video talking about the lore of the character outside of Unmatched and how it is interpreted in Unmatched and comparing and stuff. So yeah, so let's go get into it. Little Red Riding Hood, obviously a very famous character from an extremely popular fairy tale. I would even wager that in the West there are not many who have never heard any version of her story. And well, the term versions is interesting because, as with many fairy tales, her story is very deeply rooted in oral tradition, which means there are many different versions, that some vary more, some vary less, but many different versions all the same, and also many different interpretations. In some interpretations, Little Red would be representative of the month of May. In other interpretations, she is representative of the sun itself. And in others, she's just a representation of a girl maturing and growing from girlhood to womanhood. So yes, many different interpretations, many different versions. Two of the most popular ones are the ones by Charles Perrault and by the Brothers Grimm. Uh, those are very popular fairy tale authors, and they put into writing two of the most familiar for people versions of the tale. Perrault's one is the one where she gets eaten and it ends there. So no huntsman comes to the save, and the Brother Grimm's one is the one where the huntsman comes in, opens the wolf's belly, then they are saved, and yada yada yada. Another interesting thing is that in most horror versions, at least to my knowledge, there is no mention of a Little Red Riding Hood. There is a girl, no mention to this particular headgear that is so associated with her. Perrault's version, as far as I know, is the first time in writing that we can attest the use of the particular clothing that is so associated with her. And the Brother Grimm's one follows this tradition and also has her in a Little Red Riding Hood and calls the tale Little Red Riding Hood, whereas in some other versions it is called something else. So yeah, about her design in Unmatched, they also made, like Alice, they made a twist in the tale and made her a bit more battle ready. But unlike Alice, she's not necessarily a warrior here. She's more like someone willing to kill and ready to attack and defend herself. It reminds me, if anyone has played the video game Darkstalkers, it reminds of a character in that game, Buletta, who is also a parody of Little Red Riding Hood with a penchant for killing. But Unmatched version is not as psychotic, at least in principle, although she looks a bit psychotic in some cards. But she is better ready. I like this one quite a bit more. I think it feels more like Little Red Riding Hood. No big variations. They just gave it a twist. Unlike Alice, which I feel they changed too much and it was not to my taste. But well, anyway, let's talk about her card back. Very nice card back. It shows her silhouette with the riding hood and the wolf skin. Also shows all the symbols that are important for her gameplay, so you can see the knives, the wolf's belt, and the flowers. Also the axe that belonged to her sidekick, and the basket. And yeah, another little thing which is fun is that instead of just saying Little Red Riding Hood and Huntsman, the card back says the tale of Little Red Riding Hood and the Huntsman. It's somewhat of a thematic thing they made in this set. Beowulf has similar stuff going on his card back, and also her health dial, if I'm not mistaken, has the words "the end" written when her health reaches 0, so it's the end of the tale. And yeah, I find it quite fun. Just a little detail that is interesting that they made. Okay, So let's go to her stats. Little Red is a melee move 2 fighter with 14 health. Uh, being melee makes a lot of sense for her. There is nothing indicating that she would fight from afar if she fought, so tons of sense. Health and movement is usually more for gameplay reasons than for thematic reasons, I reckon, although I do believe that they take into account the teaming behind it, but I think it's less important in their minds, as it should be, because the game needs to work as a game. That being said, though, move 2 perfectly appropriated for her in a thematic sense, and 14 health also. She's just a little girl, so she doesn't need much health. Her sidekick is the Huntsman, a ranged sidekick with 9 health. 9 health is a lot for a sidekick in this game. It's the highest health a sidekick has so far, tied with Wiglaf. And yes, it's quite a lot of health. And being ranged also makes sense for him, because in the tail he has a gun which he thinks about shooting the wolf with before he realizes that maybe the grandmother is still alive in his belly, and then he decides just to cut the wolf's belly open. But he has the gun which he thinks about using, so that's why he's ranged, if you ever wondered. Another interesting thing about Huntsman here is that he is called the Huntsman, but he's more associated with the Woodsman. The Woodsman is how the Huntsman is called in the tale on many adaptations of it, or even languages. In Portuguese, my language, for example, there is rarely any instance that you will find of him being called the Huntsman. He is usually called lenhador, which means woodsman. And I don't know exactly where this comes from. He's not a woodsman in the broadest green version, which is the most popular version to present this character. But I have a little theory, which is that it's perhaps a mixture of both Brothers Grimm and Pirot, or it is taken from something other than both of them that comes from a similar source, because in Pirot there are woodsmen about when the wolf first meets Little Red. That's why the wolf doesn't eat her right away, because those woodsmen are around and could attack him if he did. So in Pirot there are woodsmen, in Brothers Grimm there are huntsmen, and I think both get conflated in many adaptations, including here, which I'm not complaining, by the way. I quite like it. So you see him with the axe. Fantastic design, by the way, on the Huntsman. Sorry about that. I really like his design overall. And yeah. So what about her ability? Her ability is resolve an effect on a card you play if the symbol next to the effect matches the item in your basket. At the start of the game, place Little Red's basket in your discard pile. So you see here, there is Little Red's basket, and when you play cards, they go to your discard pile, and your discard pile is your basket. So the top card will have a symbol, and depending on the symbol, your cards will have different effects. And yes, it's quite a nice mechanic, gameplay wise. Thematically, it does make sense. The basket is widely associated with the tail. We will talk a bit more about it later. But yes, it makes sense. And it's quite nice gameplay wise, which is what we all want, so yeah, approved. So let's go to our little game of naming alternative sidekicks. As we did with Alice, Alice had quite a bit more of options. Here I only selected 3, so who could have been Little Red's sidekick if not the Huntsman? I opted for those 3. The first one being the grandmother, obviously very associated with the tale, would fit well, very famous character relating to the story. If it was not the Huntsman, it would probably have been the grandmother. Probably changed also in a way, twisted like Little Red was to be more battle ready and stuff. But yeah, the grandmother would make lots of sense. I prefer the Huntsman, honestly, but she would fit nicely. Second one is a bit of a more deeper cut, which is the laundresses. In some versions of the tale, Little Red does not get eaten and instead runs away from the wolf, and when she's running away she comes across a river, and a laundresses in the other side puts some cloth over the river so Little Red can pass, and when the wolf tries to pass over the cloth, the laundress pulls it away, and the wolf falls into the rivers and drown. So she would be a very obscure sidekick to give Little Red. Would be a fun reference, but I prefer the Huntsman, the more popular Huntsman, who is also more active and has more cool cards that could have been placed within him. So yeah, I thought I would mention her, but Huntsman would be my choice. And the last one I thought about talking is the little, it's the not the little, the big bad wolf, who is the antagonist of the tale. I only put him here because Alice has the Jabberwock. Honestly, I prefer it to be the Huntsman, who is actually an ally of Little Red, than the big bad wolf, which is her enemy. But very popular character, very associated with the tale, could have been the choice. Overall, I think Huntsman is the best choice possible, and I'm really glad they went with him. So let's talk about her basket. Obviously, her main mechanic in the game, but do the symbols in her basket have any meaning? Were they chosen at random, or do they connect to the tale? They do. They do actually connect to the tale. The flowers, first off, are a reference to the flowers that she picks in the alternative path that she takes to her grandmother's house. After she talks with the wolf convinces her to take another path to the grandmother's house. This is present in both Piho and the Brother Green's version. And as she goes in this alternative path, she collects flowers to take to her grandmother. So the flowers, very nice reference. I am very glad they are here. The other one is the wolf's pelt. The wolf's pelt is a reference to more directly to the Brothers Green version, because after they kill the wolf, the huntsman takes its pelt and lives with it. So he skins the wolf and takes his pelt with him. So it's a reference to that. Obviously, it's the huntsman that takes the pelt, not Little Red, but Huntsman is with Little Red here in this game, so yeah, makes sense. Also a nice reference. The knives is the most complicated one, because neither in Piho's version or any translation of the Brother Green's version did I find any references to knives. There are the scissors, which the huntsman uses to cut open the wolf's belly and retrieve Little Red and the grandmothers from there, but no knives. Though I did find this Slavonic version. It's from a region that is close to Poland and Germany, between Poland and Germany, which did have reference to the knives. He uses a knife instead of the scissors to cut the wolf's belly. It's a version very similar to the Brother Green's one, but has tiny differences, and one of them is this, the knife that is used to cut the wolf's belly. Maybe they were referencing that. Certainly it's a bit more strange in the very Brother Grimm's inspired adaptation of Little Red that they made in Unmatched to have a reference to another more obscure version, but if it was really a reference to that, I like it. And if it was not, they probably just thought knives would be nicer than scissors and would make for nicer art. So yeah, those are the nice. Everything can be established as being a reference, so I am quite happy with that. And let's go on. So let's talk about the cards. First card we'll talk about is a Green Tail. It's a Huntsman only scheme that says Little Red recovers 2 health, and if the symbol matches, Little Red recovers 4 health instead. So what is this referencing? It is referencing, I reckon, the fact that the Brother Greens made a version of this tale. It's one of the tales they collected and published. Other than that, no idea. I think it's just a reference to the fact that there is a Brother Grimm's version of the tale, and that's it. Why it recovers health, also don't know. Maybe it's like she goes through the tale, and after everything is fine in the end, so she recovers health, referencing that. Maybe. I do not know. I also don't know why it's Huntsman only, but it is what it is. It's probably for gameplay reasons, and it's a reference to Brothers Grimm's. It is a reference. It's not taken from nowhere, so it's fine. Second card is Once Upon a Time, very famous and popular opener for fairy tales. Uh, it is present in both the Perrault and Brother Grimm version of this tale in particular, and in many other tales from many different authors and collectors. But yeah, it's a nice reference to have. It's a true value versatile, with the effect being after combat deal 3 damage to the opposing fighter. I also don't know what the effect is referencing. Maybe something, maybe nothing. But it's kind of funny to say Once Upon a Time you took 3 damage, so could be just this little joke or be something else. I really don't know. The art shows her cutting someone. So yeah, quite a rascal, that little red. Okay, next card is What's That in My Basket. So it is a 4 value versatile with no effect, but the symbol is a Joker symbol because anything could be in the basket. So yeah, the basket is not present in neither Perrault or Brothers Grimm version of the tale, which is quite funny because the Unmatched deck takes so much from Brothers Grimm, and this, which is the main mechanic, is not there. But it is very associated with the tale. We all know of Little Red Riding Hood with her little basket. We all heard about it. The name of the card also, What's That in My Basket? I think that's What's That in Your Basket? It's a very popular phrase. I don't know where it comes from, because as I said, it's not on any of the two more popular versions of the tale. But it is a popular phrase for sure. The Portuguese version of it is very widely known, at least, and I do believe I've heard the English version as well. So yeah, it is a neat reference. It's weird that it doesn't reference what the rest of the deck is referencing directly, and it's such an important card and important mechanic, but it's fine. The basket is associated with Little Red. It's an iconic part of her imaginary, so I do like it. Nice card, Into the Woods. A scheme for Little Red only that says move Little Red up to 3 spaces, gain 1 action. It's a direct reference to the Brother Grimm's version. By the way, before I forget, every time I put in quotations a Brother Grimm's phrase, I'm using a translation by Margaret Hunt, which I think it's important to denote since I used so many quotes from that translation. I use that translation in particular because it's the closest English translation I found to how the cards are worded in Unmatched, so I think it may have been the one they used, or it's very similar to the one they used. Maybe they translated directly from German, but yeah, if they use the translation, it's either this one or some other that's similar. Yeah, let's get this out of the way. But Into the Woods, it's a direct reference for when Little Red goes about taking the flowers and going to the wrong path, as the wolf guided her to. She goes and it says that she's going further and further into the woods. So, direct reference to the phrase. It's also the name of a musical that has to do with fairy tales, if I'm not mistaken. So, it is a phrase that became quite popular in English. But yeah, it's referencing this little passage from the Brother Grimm's version. The effect makes sense. She's going deeper into the woods, so she's moving 3 spaces, going deeper and everything. So yeah, effect makes thematic sense. The card makes sense. It's a direct reference. Cool. Next card. What big ears you have! This is the start of the famous dialogue that Little Red has with the wolf, who is disguised as her grandmother. And she starts to ask, what big ears you have, what big hands you have, what big na you have. It is a motif that is found in some versions of the tale, and in some it's not. Now, many versions from older oral traditions, older than the Brother Grimm's written one, have many reference to the how furry the wolf is, in a good sense. He literally has fur, and Little Red mentions this like, oh, your hands are so furry, your ears are so furry, why is that? But the idea is the same. The wolf answered that, oh, I have fur because I'm getting old or something. And And yes, the Brother Green's version obviously is the most famous version of this dialogue, which is what big ears you have. Oh, it's all the better to hear you with, and everything. And this is direct reference to that. I forgot to say, but it's a 4-value attack for your red only, and it says if you have the right symbol, you may play this card as a defense card. It is quite a nice art, also because she has the wolf belt on it, but since she's covering her face, it just looks like a wolf. And you can see the ears very denoted here. And yeah, it's a direct reference to the dialogue. I think it makes sense that it can be a defense card with when the effect triggers, because you're hearing what the opponent is gonna do because you have big ears. So yeah, first reference to the first reference to the dialogue, and yeah, it's directly from the Brother Green's version. Apeho also has this dialogue, but it's a bit different, and the Unmatched version is definitely the Brother Green's one. Next one, what big eyes you have? Continuation of the dialogue. What big eyes you have? All the better to see you with. So that's the card. It's a direct reference to 3-value versatile for little red only. Effects immediately cancel all effects on your opponent's card, and if you have the symbol, also ignore the value of your opponent's card. Another thing I forgot to say about the previous one, and it applies to all cards on this dialogue, is that it makes sense that it's little red only, because it's the dialogue between her and the wolf. The huntsman is not in the story yet, so it makes sense that it's only for her thematically. And yeah, the effect doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the dialogue itself, but the art explains it. She's blowing some flower petals into your eyes. So what big eyes you have? Petals into your eyes, you get blinded for a second, so that's why it cancels your effects and may ignore the value of your card because you're blind for a second. She will attack you. Works on Daredevil too, but that's just how the game goes. So yeah, it's nice theming, but it's related to the art rather than to the theme in the lore. But that's nice. I don't dislike it. Next one, from the same dialogue, what large hands you have. Little red only attack card with a value of 2. After combat, you may return this card to your hand if you have the right symbol. Instead, you may return the card on top of your discard pile to your hand. So yeah, another reference to the dialogue. What nice large hands you have, how the better to hug you with, or to hold you with, depending on the translation. Yeah, quite a good card overall. The effect makes sense, I guess. She has large hands, so she punches you with her large hands, and she can punch you again because they are large. I don't know, but it's a reference to the dialogue. It's a cool reference, also fun art. So yeah. Last one from the dialogue, little red defense value of 2. What terrible big mouth you have. What a terrible big mouth you have. After combat, deal damage to the opposing fighter equal to the printed value of their card. This is the most celebrated piece of the dialogue. You can't have the famous dialogue without this part because it's the one where after she says this, the wolf goes, all the better to eat you with, and eats her. So yes, just as the wolf eats her, she is ready to deal you back damage with her big mouth, which is currently holding a knife. So also quite a nice art. And yeah, that's the effect. Makes some thematic sense because of this, because it's the ending of the dialogue, and the wolf takes Little Red for asking that question, basically. And so the question is asked, and then terrible things happen. In this case, your damage is reflected back to you. So yeah, nice card, nice art, nice reference. Now, a 4-value card attack for Huntsman, called Long Have I Sought You. During combat, if the Huntsman is adjacent to the opposing fighter, the value of this card is 6 instead. It is a reference to the Green's version directly. He says this in the version after he finds the wolf disguised as the grandmother. He finds it's weird how the grandmother, the in quotations, grandmother is snoring, so he goes check and he sees that it's a wolf, and he says it. Do I find you here, you old sinner? I have long sought you. Oh yeah, it's what's written here. Unmatched 1 has long have I sought you, which is the one of the few reasons I think the translation I used may not be the same that they used, because this is slightly different, but other than that, it's very similar. And yeah, it's a direct reference to this dialogue. The effect makes sense if you look at the art, because he has his axe. So if he's attacking from uh, uh, short distance, he's axing you, and if he's attacking from long distance, he's shooting you or whatever. So it's weaker because the axe is stronger than the gun. But yeah, quite nice card, nice reference. I like the Huntsman design, as I said, so quite nice to look at him full-bodied. So yeah. Next card is Stones in the Belly. 2 value versatile for any. With an effect during combat, your opponent discards 1 random card. Add its boost value to this card's value. It is a reference to the way that they kill the wolf in the Brothers Green's version. After the Huntsman liberates Little Red and the grandmother, he and Little Red together put stones into the wolf's belly, and the wolf, when he wakes up, he tries to run, but the stones weight him down and he dies. So that's the reference. Thematically, lots of sense that it's an any, because Little Red is the one that starts getting the stones, and the Huntsman helps. So they both put stones in the wolf's belly together. The effect, I think it's quite thematic as well, because the opponent discards 1 random card, which could be representing the fact that Little Red and grandmother went outside of the wolf's belly, so the opponent loses a card, just like the wolf lost a meal. And the adding of the boost value also makes some sense thematically, because you're putting stones in the place. So you're putting the stones in the opponent's belly, which means his card weights down, and it's well, in this case your card's weights lower up, because you get the higher value, but it could be representing that they are weighted down, and therefore they won't hit you or will not defend as effectively. At least that's how I interpreted it. Yeah, quite a nice card. Nice art as well. I love this Huntsman design. I don't know why. It's very simple, but it's very good for me. So yeah. Next card, the Wolf Skin. 2 value defense for any. That says after combat draws 2 cards. It is a reference to, as I said, the Huntsman taking the wolf skin after they kill the wolf. Yes, it is a reference. As I wrote here, I think it's a bit redundant, because the wolf skin is already an item that can be in her basket, so the reference was already made. They kind of just made it twice. Obviously, it's no big deal. It's just a nitpick of mine. The art is good. It shows the Huntsman's hands, since he's the one that takes the wolf skin, putting the wolf skin on Little Red, which is nice thematically if you think about it, because she has the wolf skin in her basket, of course, in the game, and in her design. So it's like he passing it to her from what he gets it in the tail, and in Unmatched he passes it down to her. Since he's the one who gets it, it makes sense that it's an any. It would also make sense as a Huntsman only card, but gameplay wise, it's better that it's an any. And since they made this passage of the wolf skin to Little Red, it makes even more sense that it's an any. So yeah, all of her cards that are anis make sense to be anis, and all of her cards that are Little Red exclusive make sense to be Little Red exclusive. So they did a very good job with that, and yeah, quite like it. Now the last card, Never Leave the Path, a scheme for Little Red only, which has 3 different effects depending on the symbol. First one is place Little Red in any space, gain 1 action. Second one is deal 2 damage to each opponent fighting in Little Red zone. And the third one is draw 3 cards. So, what to say about this card? It is a reference to the overall moral of the story in the Greens version, which is that Little Red's grandmother says that she should follow the path set for her, and she should not deviate from it. And of course she deviates from it, and everything goes to hell. And in the end, after the encounter with the first wolf, she finds another wolf, but she does not deviate from the path that time, and so they deal with the wolf much easierly. Uh, so yeah, it's the overall moral. The motif of the different paths that she could take is present in many versions of the tale. I think it's perhaps one of the most important aspects of the tale is that it has to have this motif in a way. In many of the oral versions, it's quite interesting because the wolf actually offers her a choice. In the Grimm's and Pihol's version, he somewhat tricks her to take the longest path so he can get to the grandmother's house first. But in many oral traditions, he offers the choice between the path of the pins and the path of the needles, which obviously is kind of a nonce choice because both are quite similar. But there is also actually really a choice. There is a difference between them that is important for symbolic reasons, and some versions make her take the path of the pins, and some versions say that she takes the path of the needles. It's too much to get into here in this video, but I recommend going after it if you're interested. It's very interesting stuff. But yes, it's a motif very present in all the versions, including the Brother Grimm's one, where it takes the somewhat part of the overall moral of the story. It's the more moralistic part of the story. It's never leave the path, which is what she's doing here. It's a scheme. It's quite a good scheme. So you should listen to the moral of the story and never leave the path and play this card, because it's quite a good card. So yeah, the effects I can theorize what they mean, because the flowers is the draw free card, so it could be mentioning how she takes so many flowers in the path when she leaves the path, although the card is never leave the path, so she shouldn't get any flowers. Or the knives is due to damage because it's knives stuff, and the pelt is place little red in any space, gain 1 action, so she doesn't leave the path. That's why she has the wolf pelt, because the wolf doesn't get her, she gets the wolf when you place her. I'm overthinking it. As I said here, I can't theorize the team, but it's this more than anything feels like I'm overthinking. Yeah, nice card. It's a reference to a very important part of the story, so it's very nice that it's here. And the art is quite nice. The knife on the X that marks the spot, so don't leave the path. Go straight to the X. Yeah, so going on. This is another little fun trivia in a way. But why Beowulf? Why is Beowulf her adversary? Well, at first glance, you can think that it's simply because Beowulf has wolf in his name, so wolf, so it's little red against a wolf. And then it's funny, and then they put 2 famous, popular, and cool characters in the game, which may very well be the only reason they did it. But, however, there is a deeper connection between those 2, which comes through the Brothers Grimms themselves, because the Brothers Grimm, aside from being popular fairy tale collectors, they were academics, and they were in many academic debates, including debates regarding the epic poem Beowulf. Here I put a quote from John Mitchell Kimball, which is a quote from his 2nd edition of his translation of Beowulf, in which he dedicates the volume to James Grimm, one of the brothers, and mentions the other one, Wilhelm. And yeah, Wilhelm Grimm, by the way, was the first to propose similarities between Beowulf and Irish legends, which were quite discussed academically. This John Mitchell Campbell was very involved in the Beowulf debate, and he was friends with the Grimms, and he was a Germanist in many ways. He was British, but he got into trouble with the British academia because he was accused of being too enamored with the German way of philology and stuff. So it's quite a mess. But the Brother Grimms were involved in some way or the other in many debates regarding the poem Beowulf. So, and since the Little Red from Unmatched takes so much from the Little Red in the Brother Grimms version, it is quite a nicer fit than it sounds at first glance, because at first glance it sounds like it's just a pun, big wolf, but also has this that's this neat little historic trivia that connects them even more and makes me like this box even more. This box is great. The pun is also there, of course. It's a funny pun. So, all in all, Little Red is a fan favorite among this game, even more than Alice, I would say. For good reason. Her mechanic is very nice, very well made. The way she works, because with a mechanic like hers, she could feel clunky, but she does not. They made it in a way that she feels very natural, and very rarely you feel like you have no options with her, which is quite nice and quite speaks to how well designed this game is overall. So yes, very cool character, not as cool as Golden Bat, of course, but cool character nonetheless. The fairy tale is a very popular fairy tale for a reason. I think it's a great one. Not my favorite, but a great one regardless. And yeah, they took it more from the Brothers Green version, as I said, but they may have taken some things from other versions, as with the knives. And overall, very nice character. The theming is very well done. Most of the effects don't make that much sense, but some of them do. And team-wise, I mean. And yeah, the ones that do are quite nice. And all of her cards are a reference. She has no unique cards, which is also nice. And yeah, that is Little Red, our little girl. And yeah, well, that's it. Thank you for watching. Sorry that you had to bear with me if you watched till here. I get sometimes I stutter a bit, but hopefully this video is a bit more well produced than the last one. At least now I know how to put music, and I think I cropped it a little better too. Oh yes, by the way, before I forget, thank you to Captain Crockpot, who taught me how to put the music in, and gave me some other tips. And yeah, okay, I'm speaking too much, I'm kinda tired, so thank you if you watched the video till here, and until next time, if there is a next time.